Everybody, today we are debating creationism and cosmology, and we are starting right now. Ladies and gentlemen, thrilled to have you here for this exciting debate. You could say it's a collision of worlds, as we have the young Earth creationist Nephilm Free here today, as well as Fight the Flat Earth, who identifies more as agnostic, and it's going to be a huge clash, given that Fight the Flat Earth usually in the Flat Earth debates, and Nephilm Free usually in the young Earth creationism debates, but today they're coming together to debate creationism and cosmology, and whether or not it has evidence and makes sense. And if this is your first time here, consider hitting that subscribe button, as we have a lot more debates coming up. In fact, we are very excited. Tomorrow we will have none other than Doug Wilson. I don't know if you know about who Doug Wilson is, but he will be here tomorrow. He went on a debate tour with Christopher Hitchens, and so that's going to be a very exciting one. And so, as mentioned, hit that subscribe button and that little notification bell if you want reminders. And want to let you know, our guests that we have today are both linked in the description. So if you're listening, you're like, I like that, I want more, then I highly encourage you, just right down there, see, down in the description box, you can click on their link and get much more, so you can binge watch over there. So with that, very excited for this one, folks. If you have any questions, fire them into the live chat. I will try to scoop them up and then ask them during the Q&A. And with that, we just kind of, Nephilm Free is just kind of get the ball rolling with kind of his opening case. And this is kind of like a flexible opening where he'll kind of just share the position that he has and maybe just a few arguments that he has for his position. And then from that, we'll just really go into an open conversation where Fight will be kind of challenging and prodding, and we'll just kind of go from there with that live discussion. So thanks so much, Nephilm Free and Fight, for being here.
Wasn't prepared for this. Didn't know I was going to be debating until about 2 hours ago. So I'm not prepared for anything, but I'll just talk about what I do know. So my position is I'm a young Earth creationist. And I believe that God created the universe approximately 6,000 years ago. I believe cosmic inflation explains why a galaxy can appear to be billions of years old where it is, and the Earth be 6,000 years old where it is. I believe that the evidence for that the geologic column of the planet, the Earth, is so overwhelmingly in favor of the Noahic flood, in fact screams of it, that we can know with certainty from science that the entire geologic column was produced by a one-year catastrophic event and cannot have been produced by uniformitarian processes, which cannot explain the sedimentary strata, the features of the strata, verifying the Earth is young, because if the entire geologic column is young, the planet is young. There are no millions of years. So that, and I've got a list of over 100 reasons we can know the Earth is geologically young. The planets, the properties of the planets in our solar system do not conform to the nebular hypothesis, which is the secular explanation for how they came into being. There are countless problems with accretion, with the properties of the planets, with their cores being off center. They're not in a flat elliptical plane with the sun. The list, they all don't rotate the same direction. The list goes on and on and on. The gravitational fields are too weak. Too strong. I'm sorry. If there were billions of years old, geologically active moons such as Io and planets like Pluto, none of it fits the secular nebular hypothesis. It's what they need to believe in order to believe the universe is billions of years old, but there just isn't. Nothing conforms to it. And they don't have a model for the formation of stars. They admit this. NASA admits this in a white paper in 2010. I think the evidence is clear that the universe was created by God, and just like the scriptures say, the heavens declare the glory of God. Some people refuse to give the glory to the Creator, and so they believe that naturalism explains everything. And I'd say that's a faulty thinking. So that's my position, and be happy to hear yours, Fight.
Okay, thank you. So, right, I believe the universe is pretty much as science tells us that it is. I believe that this is verifiable in many ways, that the universe is the age that we're told it is, that galaxies are the distance away they are. I believe there is many ways of verifying the age of the Earth, and that things have been around for millions and billions of years on the planet. You know, the radiometric data, dating, and more. I believe that there is no science that tells us the Earth is 6,000 years old, and there is no evidence of a global flood. If you want to believe in the Bible, that's fine, but I don't believe the Bible is in any way something that we should rely on for scientific or historical data. There is many inaccuracies in the Bible, many things that are just outright wrong in the Bible. So I don't think it should be relied on to give us any kind of guidance as to, you know, what the age of the Earth is or the shape of the Earth is. I know you're not a flat earther, but a lot of flat earthers use the Bible as a claim that, you know, that the Earth is flat. But I don't believe that there is any evidence for a God. I used to identify as a, you know, an atheist straight out. I don't believe there's a God, but after talking to Steve McRae, he's convinced me that I'm agnostic because I could never prove there isn't a God. I still don't think there is one, but I could never prove there isn't a God, so I can't ever make the claim there isn't a God. But I also don't think that the existence of a God necessarily means that the Earth and the universe is only 6,000 years old. There's no reason, if there is a God, he couldn't have created the universe in the way that science describes it, including the processes like evolution and tectonic shifting and everything that describes the way that humanity and the planet has come to be. So that's my position.
Well, I would argue with you about the Bible having in discrepancies. The Bible actually has about 3 dozen that I know of scientific foreknowledge, examples of scientific foreknowledge in it, things that man not only did not know, but could not possibly have known, because the technology to discover them was not available in 3000 BC or 1400 BC, rather.
Okay.
But
there is many inaccuracies in the Bible.
I would debate you that all night long.
Well, the Bible says that pi is 3.
No, it doesn't. It just describes.
Absolutely does.
No, it doesn't say anything about pi. It describes the shape of a dish. If it doesn't happen to be pi, there's nothing in the text that says this is pi.
What the Bible says in that passage is that the circumference by the the diameter, and it describes the process of deriving pi, and it says the circumference of this thing is 30 cubits and the diameter is 10 cubits. So it is giving you what pi would be. No. If pi would be 3 if those details that it's told us are accurate.
No, it's not describing pi. It's just God gave an instruction on how to make it, and it doesn't align with pi. And you guys claim that God was trying to make it pi. That's not so. The text says nothing about pi. God just gave them the mathematics on how to make it the dimensions he wanted it to be. Because it doesn't happen to be pi, does not evidence the Bible is wrong about pi. I'm sorry.
Well, it says that it would exist with the circumference of 30 cubits and the diameter of 10 cubits, and that would mean that pi would be 3. And so God is trying to give instructions, make something that mathematically couldn't exist.
No, it simply doesn't describe pi. You're adding ideas to the text.
How do you get pi? How do you calculate what pi is?
It doesn't matter. Because the Bible doesn't say anything about pi.
If you want to infer things about the Bible, which is kind of the basis of your entire argument, then you have to infer that if he's talking about the circumference and the diameter, then from those informations that you could get pi.
Now, and here's your mistake.
In the Bible mean that pi was 3.
Your mistake is that you're saying the Bible is describing pi, but the Bible says nothing about pi. It's fallacious to make an argument against something that the Bible simply doesn't say. So that's
it's not fallacious because it is telling us what you don't have to say pi to know that the pi is to do with the circumference and
you're assuming it's describing pi. It's not. It's just that it's describing whatever dimensions it was God
Okay.
gave them, and that just happens to not be pi, and that's all there is to that. Now,
Okay,
when
so
you mentioned radiometric dating,
no, wait, I haven't finished on this one thing because I'm trying to make the argument that the
but you'll
Bible.
never win that, sir. You
Well,
can't.
One
The
second.
Bible doesn't say the word pi. It
let me
doesn't
read
say
what it
pi.
says. Also, he made a molten sea of 10 cubits from brim to brim, round in compass, and 5 cubits from height thereof, and a line of 30 cubits did compass it round about. And under it was a simulite of oxen, which did compass it round about, 10 in cubit, compassing the sea round about. That would literally mean that the relationship between the circumference and the diameter of something is 3 instead of 3.1417. So it doesn't have to say the words pi, but according to the reality that is trying to be written there in the Bible, pi would have to be 3. And we know that isn't a fact. So the Bible is wrong in that case. The dimensions of that item that's being described cannot physically exist.
Bible isn't discussing pi. But if you want scientific foreknowledge in the Bible discusses cosmological particle physics in 1400 BC, tells us that light travels distance over time, an idea not written of by human beings or entered any human mind until Sir Isaac Newton in 1705. The Bible tells us of hydrothermal vents on the ocean floor in 1440 BC. Man didn't know they were there until 1976. The list goes on and on. The Bible has dozens of scientifically correct examples of foreknowledge in it that man didn't know, but could not possibly have known. It even describes fossils in the earth, the process of fossilization. Believe that or not, it makes 2 allusions to the book to genetics correctly, and the list goes on. I'm sorry, the Bible is never ever nobody's ever demonstrated a scientifically a wrong idea in the Bible ever. But now I would address this. You mentioned radiometric dating. I know that you secular types love this subject, and you really think that you have something when you talk about radiometric dating. But let me
Very
share
much so.
something with you. There's all kinds of assumptions built into radiometric dating. If I lit a candle, and if somebody lit a candle and I enter the room, I have no way of knowing when the candle was lit, so I can't tell you how long it's been burning. I need to know how long the candle was when it was lit and the rate at which it burns. But if I don't know how long the candle was or what the rate is, even if I discovered the rate at which the candle burns by study, I'm not going to know how long the candle was. Now,
right.
The
problem.
Okay. Sure. Okay. Okay.
I mean, I wasn't finished with the fact that the Bible does describe many things inaccurately, but we'll get back to that. But radiometric data, you don't seem to get what the concept of it is there. Do you know what like a half-life is? Do you know how we calculate the half-life of something? Do you know how we can tell how long atoms have been decaying? Neff, do you?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, it's a parent to daughter isotope ratio. Yeah, I understand that.
Right. So then why do you have an issue with radiometric data when there is so many physical, there's no assumptions. There's no assumptions around how fast an atom decays or what kind of decaying, bits it would leave over and the way that you can date them. These things are not assumptions. These are physical constants of the universe.
Well, let me explain one of those assumptions to you. Water washes radioisotopes into and out of rocks constantly. In fact, that's why we have elements in our drinking water that we don't want in there, because water washes isotopes into and out of rocks. The older you believe the rock is, the greater number of watery events have influenced that rock. For example, the number of times it's rained, the rock has been influenced by water transporting radioisotopes all throughout the earth. So the older you think the rock is, the greater the problem is for you. Now, here's an example of an assumption that goes into it. Let's say you want to date a rock and it's in a sedimentary strata that's 10 feet down. And you get a date for that rock of, let's say, 10 million years, because that's how long you think it's been there because of radioisotope dating. And then you date a rock that's 20 feet down and you get an older date and you think, see, this one's deeper in the geologic column, it's older, but you don't know that because, for one thing, because it's deeper, it may have experienced more water influence it. Maybe some of the isotopes that were in the rock at the top washed out of it into the rock at the bottom, and that's why you're getting an older date. But you can't know that. In fact, you can't even know when that rock was formed. You don't know when the dating process begins. You don't know when the sediments that deposited that rock in that strata did so. You don't know how much of the parent isotope was in that rock when it was first formed. You don't know how much is leached out because of water when it first formed. That's 100% potential variables. Let me share this statement with you from E.H. Andrews, professor of materials at University of London, head of Department of Materials at Queen's College. Also, he said this: whenever the figures arrived by the dating methods, they are weeded out before publication in science journals if they do not concord with preconceived dates and assignments of the geologic column. And also relating to potassium-argon dates, Dr. Richard Mauger, associate professor of geology at Carolina University, said, in general, dates in the correct ballpark are assumed to be correct and are published, and those which are in disagreement with other data are seldom published, nor are discrepancies fully explained. So radiometric dating produces a metric of dates. The scientist who has a preconceived idea of how old that geologic column the strata is based on, for example, an index fossil or some other thing in their preconceived evolutionary mind, it picks the date that's produced by the radiometric dating process and discards the rest. Now, again, I've pointed out that the geologic column was produced by a one-year Noahic flood, and therefore all of that geologic time that you believe in doesn't exist, because strata form one on top of the other horizontally. The one below is almost exactly the same age as the one above. This has been demonstrated by hydrology and sedimentology experiments in the labs numerous times. You can watch them form before your very eyes. They have the same properties as the ones that make up the entire geologic column. So because strata form together in groups horizontally, with the one above the other and the one below it, and they have clear, fine, distinct boundaries and do not gradiate one to another, all the hundreds of millions of years of time that you believe don't even exist. They can't. It's scientifically impossible because strata form horizontally in groups. There's no time in between the strata. So your idea of the age of the Earth is impossible, scientifically impossible.
Well, okay, now I'd say I have to disagree with the majority of what you said because of the way that we know that atoms decay, and you can take a section of a material and know what it should contain, and you can see what parts of the if there's radiation that's been around at certain times that we can verify by events that have happened. I mean, the ranges that you can get are all, the 6,000 years is nothing. We can definitely tell something is older than 6,000 years. It gets harder to pinpoint it the further away it is.
How do you know it's over 6,000 years?
Because of the way that atoms decay and the byproducts that the atoms leave behind when they do decay.
Because the rate of decay is X million years or 100,000 years, right? Because that's the rate.
Yes, and we know that.
So when did the materials get formed in that rock? You have to know that before you can apply.
A lot longer than 6,000 years ago.
How do you know that?
Because of the way that atoms decay. That is literally the point of how you use radiometric dating.
Let me try to ask you this question in a way that I don't think you grasped it. Okay, so we know that the decay rate is X, okay? And that's all. The science of measuring the rate of decay and the elements in the rocks is very, very good. That's really high-tech stuff, super good technology. That's great science, no problem with that. The assumptions that are built in is where the science falls away from the method. So here's the problem. If we know that, let's say, to get this parent isotope to produce X amount of daughter isotope will take 10 million years, let's say. Okay, that's a scientific fact. Okay, so you measure the difference and you find there is X parent daughter isotope. But when did the decay begin? To know when it began, you have to know when that rock formed with that isotope in it, so that the dating will, the method of the process of decay will produce it. You also have to know how much water has washed isotopes into or out of that rock throughout its whole geologic history. Unless you know those three variables, the method, the rate at which the material decays tells you nothing. Do you understand? Those are three major assumptions
I think you're
built into all dating methods.
Right, so by their chemical nature, rock minerals contain certain elements and not others. In rocks containing radioactive isotopes, the process of radioactive decay generates exotic elements over time. And by measuring the concentration of the stable end product of decay, coupled with the knowledge of the half-life and the initial concentration of the decaying element, the age of the rock can be calculated.
Initial concentration, that's one of the problems.
1 second, Neff.
How do you know what the initial concentration of it was?
Neff, 1 second. I just want to give Fight the Flat Earth to answer that first question as well. I don't know if he was done.
No, typical radioactive end products are argon from the decay of potassium-40 and lead from decay of uranium and thorium. If the rock becomes molten, as happens in the Earth's mantle, such non-radioactive end products typically escape or are redistributed. Thus, the age of the oldest terrestrial rock gives a minimum for the age of the Earth. It's, there are natural things that will be in the rock due to the way that they are created. We know how rock is created from the molten form, the process of the Earth and everything. So we know what that process should create and what it should leave in the rock for us to then be able to date later on.
Okay, so the problem immediately the problem comes to mind is you said you know the amount of parent isotope that was in the rock when it formed. How do you know that?
Because of the method of formation. If the rocks were created from the molten mantle of the Earth, then they would have put certain isotopes into the rock, which could then be dated later on from that formation process.
How do you get an age out of that, though? You haven't explained how you can know the age of it.
1 sec, just to let him finish.
That is the point. We know that how much it should put into it at formation, and then we can see how much it has in it, and from that we can deduce how many times the atom would have had to decay to give us a date.
Okay, how you haven't explained how you can know how much of the parent isotope was in the rock when it formed.
Because we know how much there should be in due to.
How do you know how much should be in a given rock? How do you know that?
That's what I'm saying. The formation process of the rock from molten mantle would put a certain amount of isotopes into there. The literal chemical nature of the way that the molten metal becomes rock creates certain isotopes and stuff that we can then date later on.
You're saying that if you have a lava flow and this molten material becomes solidified, you can know how much of an isotope is going to be in any given rock because of its process. If that were so, then why do we date? If that were so, why is it then? I think that's absurd. If that were so, why do rocks from similar why isn't it all rocks formed by lava flow have the same age? They don't come up with the same age. That's just ridiculous.
Different lava flow over different periods.
Right, so you can't know. You just
create the creation. No, I haven't, because the creation of the Earth's mantle is a continual process because of convection currents in the molten lava, and as the molten lava changes to solid rock, that process means that it should have a certain amount of elements in it to start with. Right, and then see how many it has, and then we can say, well, based on that, and we know how the half-life having to have been this many times, we can say it is this X amount of years old.
You can't know when that rock formed.
I literally just told you how we can know when it formed.
No, you can't. What you've done is admit that there's yet another assumption built into your dating
half-lives aren't assumptions.
By assuming that a certain isotope is going to be created by the process of the rock forming, which is just incorrect. Well, there's no way for you to know a molten rock is going to form, especially since the fact that you can date lava from the same mountain, the same volcano, and get different ages. Let me give you an example. In 1986, Mount St. Helens blew its top, and scientists have dated the materials that came out of it, and they get different potassium-argon dates for the same material. In fact, the Unicorette lava flow at the bottom of the Grand Canyon has been radiometrically dated at 10,000 years old, 117 million years old, 715 million years old, 853 million years old, 1.1 billion years old, 1.39 billion years old, and 2.6 billion years old from the same lava flow.
that's a lovely bunch of numbers.
So
but
the point I'm making,
I'm not talking about the lava flow.
Your statement is incorrect, because you can't know when a given rock was formed, and you're going to, because this stuff is molten, and you get different ages for the same solidified.
There's many different types of radiometric dating, and you're talking about the wrong kind of radiometric dating. When you radiometric data a rock formed by lava, the actual formation, that process of it becoming from going from molten lava to a solid rock, has chemical processes in it that gives us isotopes that we can then later, and based on the fact that we know that certain elements decay at certain rates, we can say, right, well, this rock has this many of those elements in, meaning that it's been around for X amount of time, because it has to have decayed this many periods of half-lives.
So what you've explained is you have an assumption, and you've also admitted, and you've also admitted that because you can't know when the rock was formed itself, except for your assumption.
Told you how. There's no
except for your assumption.
And the decay of half-lives is not an assumption. Decaying, the rate of decay.
I understand what you said.
Neff, let's just give him a second.
The thing is, you can also tell how many periods of half-life an element has decayed. So
I understood what you said.
You have a period of time that you can extrapolate from that data.
I understood what you said, but there is an assumption built in.
There's
and that
no
assumption is, yes.
Half-lives are not
one of the assumptions is that there is consistency always in the formation of rocks as to how much isotope is going to be in it. And I've explained, since the material is molten, that's not possible. And now when I pointed out these different radiometric dates that were produced by the same Unicaret lava formation, you said because these scientists were using the wrong method. Well, how can any of them be wrong? Anyway, and secondly, even if there were different dating methods, if there were different dating methods and they come up with different ages, all that proves is inconsistency between the dating methods, their inability to provide empirical evidence about the age of the rock.
Okay, let's give him just there are 2 points there. So there's that first question you asked him, Neff, and then you made that second point. So I want to give him a chance to respond to both, because it's hard to remember everything.
So my point being that we can tell how many times an element has decayed, how many times that isotope has gone through the half-life process. And based on that number of knowing how many times it has gone down so that there's that concentration in it, based on the concentration of formation, can give us a period of time. And there is different types of rocks all around the world. There is different, let's look at Hawaii, for instance. There's literally a science study that's been going on for about 12 years. But every week they test the formation of lava, of rock from lava, to give us more and more accurate data. And it's based on this knowledge of the formation process that we can actually make that determination. So that there is no assumptions. We know the composition of lava in the mantle. Therefore, we know the process of it going from lava to being rock, and what that should give us that we can then later on measure.
Yeah, I know you. I heard you the first time. I understand what you're saying, but I've already given information that refutes that. You see, because, for example, in the 1986 dactite flow from Mount St. Helens yielded dates of 350,000 years old, and they were formed in the 1986. So you see, here's the problem. When I told you there was assumptions built into your idea about how much isotope should be in a given rock, I wasn't lying to you. In 1986, Mount St. Helens blew up. Some of that material solidified into rock. That's when it formed into a rock. Now, it dated 350K. That's not possible. The rock formed in 1986. So I'm sorry that your idea that what you've described as empirical science is no such thing. Because if that were true, the rock flows from the 1986 Mount St. Helens explosion could not date 350,000 years of age. Do you understand?
You're taking the wrong data set from the thing.
There's nothing wrong with the data. That's what the actual
I'm not saying the data. I'm saying that the things that you're referring to don't actually indicate the date of the rock. It was a lot more going on in the I mean,
Excellent.
the particular studies that you're on about, I would have to look at in particular. But I know that the way that you use, there's so many different types of radiometric dating for different types of things, and there's different ways to interpret the data.
So
and
you would acknowledge that this date is incorrect?
I'm saying that I don't know what that particular data is, but I know that data that is collected like on every week from rocks in Hawaii, so we know the formation of rocks, how that works. We can then easily test things from there.
Yeah. Well, it sounds to me like you just admitted that date can't be accurate because according to what you've said is empirical science. The rock formed in 1986, but was dated at 350,000 years of age.
Okay.
Don't put words in my mouth, okay?
Well, no, I'm just telling you.
I admit something when I clearly have said the exact opposite.
Okay.
Right.
So let me ask you a question then. Your statement that we can know how much isotope should be in a rock because of its formation and how it formed. Do you not agree that if we date a rock that was formed in 1986 from the dactite flow and it dates at 350,000 years of age, that date is wrong, and that makes a case against your preconceived idea that when we can know when a rock formed because of how much isotope is in it? Isn't there a contradiction between this science and what you have said?
No, because
the
method that we're talking about is incorrect.
It's incorrect.
Yes. When you actually use radiometric dating properly, using the correct controls and everything that you need to know, you always get consistent results.
This is what always happens when people point out inconsistencies and problems with the things that evolutionists say, like this, is, it was done wrong. This is what you're always going to do.
If I try to,
please let me finish. So what you're going to always do is
you're putting words in my mouth, and I'm not going to let you. You're putting words in my mouth, and I'm not going to let you.
There's a lot of points that you've made, Neff, and I just want to give the chance to respond to all of them.
If the incorrect method is used for something, then you aren't going to get correct data. If you want to measure the temperature inside of my oven, I'm not going to use a thermometer that's sitting on my wall. It's not going to give you the correct reading.
Okay, so the point I was making.
Neff, let's just give him a chance to respond.
Seriously, do you have an off switch or what?
You had stopped speaking, and I was talking when
I literally hadn't finished my point before you opened your mouth. Okay. When you actually use the correct methods for what you are doing, with the correct controls, knowing what you are doing, you always get consistent results. And the results will always say that, no, the Earth is not 6,000 years old. It's closer to 4.5 billion years old. You will never get you will never radiometrically date a rock that says it is older than 4.5 billion years old, because that is when the formation of the Earth happened.
Okay.
But there is things that have been dated to be around 4.5 billion years old, but never older.
So the point I was making is that this data, like many examples, demonstrates that your idea about knowing how much of an isotope should be in a rock because of when
you're just saying the same thing again.
Hold on.
You're just saying the same thing again.
It is incorrect because of data like this, and I was pointing out that whenever data just is not concordant with your ideas, what inevitably happens, what evolutionists always do, is throw the data and the scientists that produced it under the bus. You do it every time. You've done it. Evolutionists have done it hundreds of times in biology and geology. The data doesn't conform to your ideas. It's because
stop.
Now wait a minute.
One second.
You need to stop it.
When the data doesn't conform, somehow the scientist is a buffoon and unable to do the process correctly. I know that's very upsetting to you. I know.
Neff, you need to stop putting words in my mouth because you're painting.
No, I didn't put any words in your mouth.
Neff, stop talking.
I didn't put words in your mouth.
No, you're painting a picture
which
purely isn't true. It purely isn't true. Because when
I can prove
we
it is.
discard data is when the data is not gathered in a correct way.
I know. That's what you're going to say every time it doesn't concord with your ideas. That's what you guys always do.
Flat earthers constantly get data that say the earth isn't flat, that say the earth is flat, but their data is wrong because the method of gathering it was incorrect.
Right. The data is wrong because it doesn't concord with your ideas. That's what,
no.
that's what happens.
Are you saying that the Earth's flat because flat earthers can get data that say the Earth is flat?
I'll give you another example of how scientists do this.
No. I've asked you a question.
They do it all the time.
I asked you a question. Are you saying the Earth is flat because flat earthers keep giving us data?
Crying out loud, no.
Right. Okay then.
No. My point is.
My point. Neff, shut up and let me finish my point.
Okay. If you're going to be the only one talking here, why am I here?
You have literally not shut up since we started.
No, James took the mic from me when you were talking. You had finished talking.
But
and I started to talk about scientists being thrown under the bus.
Now let me finish my point.
What we'll do is just regroup for 1 second. We don't have too much longer until we go to Q&A. So if we're able to, I promise we will give you equal time to respond, Neff, is that if you just trust me that we'll give you plenty of time to respond. I just want to be sure that in the case of Fight the Flat Earth, that if he kind of thinks that there are cases in which he's kind of being spoken on behalf of, I want to give him plenty of time to clear that up. I promise we'll come back.
Right. So my point about the flat earthers is that flat earthers constantly gather data which, when they look at it, says that the earth is flat.
I'm not a flat earther.
Hold on 1 sec, Neff.
Let me finish my point. But you're not a flat earther. That's exactly right, because the earth isn't flat. Even though those flat earthers keep gathering data that say the earth is flat. The reason they gather that data is because the methods they have been using are incorrect, meaning that that data is incorrect. Not all data is incorrect. If you use the incorrect method of radiometric dating, then you will get the incorrect date.
Okay, so now I have to ask you, is potassium-argon not a correct method for dating rock?
Is potassium-argon, there's different, you mean the method of using the decay of potassium and the fact that you get argon as a...
I just asked a simple question.
Potassium-40.
So are you going to argue that when scientists use potassium-argon dating to date rocks, that they shouldn't be doing so? Is that what you're saying?
No, but that isn't the correct method for doing all of the things.
Okay, so the point is the materials that became rock that came out of Mount St. Helens in 1986 dated with potassium-argon as 350,000 years of age. That was my only point. And you immediately attacked the data and the researchers without knowing anything about it, because you do what evolutionists always do, and as any time data is produced that's not concordant with your beliefs, you immediately throw the scientist and the method under the bus, and you don't even know what you're talking about before you're willing to do it without even knowing human research.
You literally can't use potassium-40 radiocarbon dating for young rocks anyway. That's the wrong method. So that proves my point.
Your point is the rock was formed.
It does prove my point. Because you are saying that is the method that they used, and that is the incorrect method for dating young rocks.
No, you said that we can know how much of the isotope in it because we know when the rock formed. Obviously, that's not so.
It literally is, because that's...
It can't be. Rocks formed in 1986 dated 350,000 years ago.
Using the incorrect method of dating...
But now you're saying potassium-argon is not the right method for dating rocks.
Not young rocks, no.
Oh, but how do you know they're young? How do you know?
Because if they just formed in 1986, of course they're fucking young.
Right. So
using potassium to argon decay rate dating is incorrect. It's not the correct method for dating young rocks. So you're going to get the wrong date if you use the wrong method.
All you're doing is admitting that we have to perceive the rock as old in order to date it and get the right date. But when we don't believe the rock is old, then the dating method was wrong. We shouldn't have used it. You see the problems with that?
No, not at all, because that isn't the correct method.
So you're not applying science when you do that. You're applying your paradigm to that.
No, I wouldn't use a VCR to try and play a DVD The same way I wouldn't use potassium-argon dating to measure young rocks from lava.
Right, and you wouldn't carbon-14 a diamond either, but they find carbon-14 is found constantly in diamonds, and
Yeah,
there can be none.
carbon-14 is
And let me finish my sentence, please. And there can be no carbon-14 in a diamond, none. If you had a mass of carbon the size of the Earth, the mass of the Earth, every bit of it, around to the last atom, would be gone in 1 million years. Now, if you find any carbon, any measurable carbon in a diamond, the diamond cannot be millions of years old, because it certainly doesn't have the mass of the Earth worth of carbon in it. So
it's still
I'm just pointing out problems with your ideas about dating.
There is no problem when you use the correct method. That's my point, Neff.
Well, you can fix the problem by wishing all the diamonds of the Earth away.
Neff, let's just let him give a response.
Everything that you're talking about is, using incorrect methods. You look just the wrong way of doing things. When you actually do things the correct way, you always get the consistent results.
So let me ask you a question about that.
Hold on, Neff, let's just let him kind of finish these points.
It's all right. I think we're done with this question, because my point is, if you don't use the correct method, you won't get the correct results.
If we don't use the method that concords with your belief about the age of the rock.
Using the correct method is a very important part of science.
Right. So if we don't use the method that comports with your idea about how the rock is.
No, if we can see that a rock, you or yourself is saying rocks formed in 1986.
We don't know when the diamond formed, did we?
I don't know specifically about diamonds. I haven't looked into that. I'm not going to answer a question I don't know.
All diamonds are believed to be hundreds of millions of years old, at least. So if you find carbon-14 in it, what's the problem with that diamond?
There's not all diamonds anyway.
You would agree there's no problem with the scientists who received the diamond
and
crushed it and ran it through their gas chromatographs, right? They did good science, didn't they? The ones that crushed it and then dated it. That was good science, isn't it?
Diamonds are pure carbon, and radiation can actually change carbon to carbon-14. And there has been certain activities throughout the timeline of the Earth.
Not if it's diamond.
Any carbon can become
any carbon left in the diamond would have decayed.
I want to just give him plenty of time to respond.
Become carbon-14 under the right conditions.
But there can't be carbon-14 in a diamond. That's the point.
But you've said that they find carbon-14 in a diamond. Oh, well, there can be carbon-14 in a carbon.
If it was in the material when the diamond formed, and the diamond was formed recently, it could. But not if the diamond was millions of years old. There can be no carbon-14.
Unless there was something in the past that happened to turn certain atoms of the diamond into carbon-14.
Or once the diamond has been turned into...
Hold on,
later on, once the diamond is many years in the future, a radiation event of some kind can alter some of the atoms in the diamond.
You're saying there's a process by which diamond can be turned into carbon-14?
I'm saying there's a process in which carbon can be turned into carbon-14.
Okay, but diamond is modified carbon. Molecularly, it's modified.
It's not modified. It's just stacked neatly.
You're saying that can be transformed into carbon-14?
Yeah.
You are?
Radiation.
You have a science paper where any scientists give an explanation of how it's possible to transform the diamond, carbon in a diamond into carbon-14?
I'm saying that carbon
after it's already
Neff, you have to let him, like, if you ask him the question, give him like more than
I didn't get a chance to answer the question.
You don't shut your fucking mouth, honestly. You need to learn there's an off switch.
Like, I didn't get a chance to ask the question.
You asked the question over and over, and then don't let me answer. Shut up.
It was definitely, Neff, we got that your question was, do you have a scientific paper that would show the carbon?
I was asking a different question.
Well, hold on, Neff. That was at least the first one, and so like he didn't have more than a second to say, like, if he says yes, and then he wants to maybe expand on like why he's saying yes. Like,
okay, well, if you had answered that question, I have another one I would like to ask.
Okay, so let's just give him more than a couple of seconds to respond to your question on whether or not he has a paper on whether or not carbon-14 can spontaneously, or whatever word you want to use, come into
be produced inside a diamond. Yeah.
Inside a diamond. Thank you.
Right. Okay. So I'm just getting up I don't have much knowledge on this. The notes that I have. So just give me 1 second.
Okay. While you're looking for that, can I ask?
No. Don't, because then I can't answer this question. Seriously, shush.
Oh, look.
Oh my God.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, you really need to learn. You
Take care.
don't understand how conversations work. Is he gone?
Okay, Neff left. Okay, well, I don't have. I mean, this sometimes happens with Neff. In that case, it was like I know young Earth creationists are probably gonna
Right, yeah.
give me hell for this, and I really, folks, if the question is asked and there's only like 1 or 2 seconds to answer, that's like, how is Fight the Flat Earth going to, if he says yes, and it's like, well, he just wants it's fair to give him like a couple of seconds to explain why he says yes,
Yeah.
or to pull up the paper. Like, it's not always easy to have, in the same way that young Earth creationists might want, like if a young Earth creationist is challenged to, what's the word? Maybe like give an answer from the Bible or something. Like, not everybody has everything memorized at the very moment they're asked, and so it's okay to like pull up your notes or something. So
He just wouldn't shut up.
I
I mean, I remember reading a paper about how the thorium decay can, and I was looking for it, and I mean, I've pretty much found the information I was looking for, and it is. I've just literally lost that page I was on. Right. The decay of uranium and thorium, among other isotopes, produces radiation which can create carbon-14 from carbon. The results from a unique decay mode known as cluster decay, where a given isotope emits a particle heavier than the alpha particle, and it can literally change the carbon in a diamond from carbon to carbon-14. And so it doesn't mean that when the diamond was formed there had to have been carbon-14 in there. It means that radiation in events that happen near that diamond can change some of the carbon in that diamond to carbon-14. And I'm sure if he given me some time to actually speak and get some papers up, I could find papers that support that, because cluster decay isn't something that's been made up. It's a scientific fact.
it's
very hard to debate against someone that doesn't shut up and gives you about 1,000 points in one go.
I think that it did seem to, like, there were, I have no apologies for, like, I don't think I did anything wrong. So, Neff, I have no hard feelings. I hope you're doing okay. It's just like, this is just kind of how it's like, I have to moderate, like, and I'm pretty laissez-faire. I think most people criticize me for being not involved enough. Like, I usually let the conversation just kind of organically go where it wants, and so it's kind of like, it's not like, I don't think I'm that hard of a regulator. So anyway,
No.
We do appreciate both of the gentlemen being here. If you enjoyed what you heard,
it was fun.
They're linked in the description, and so we appreciate them being here. We appreciate Fight the Flat Earth, sorry about that, sticking it out and staying with us. So he is in the description as well, and so we are excited. We have a lot of debates coming up this week, so thanks for hanging out with us today, you guys. Thanks, Fight the Flat Earth, for being here.
You're welcome. That was fun. Honestly, I need to say it was very much like debating a flat earther, in the way that he didn't have any accurate science and just wanted to steamroll me with a whole bunch of bullshit to try and win the debate. And it's like the old saying, if you can't dazzle them with brilliance, baffle them with bullshit. Because it was just a constant stream of wrong information without giving me a chance to respond to each bit in between. I've done hundreds, maybe 100 flat earth debates now, but I've not done many debates against creationists, so I'm not aware of all the arguments. But if you give me, I know the basic science around stuff, and if he gives me time to quickly pull up the papers and stuff he's asking for, I can easily get them, because researching really isn't hard. And the problem with young earth creationists as well as flat earthers is they just don't know how to research. They will only look for the things that fit their own confirmation bias.
It's been a wild one for sure. And yeah, I guess the other thing is, it's like, when your attention is on finding that paper that you were looking for, that's what I was like, like, if you can, I asked Neff to wait to ask you a new question, because with your attention divided, it's like, that's hard to do. And so it's like, kind of like, we still had plenty of time to where it's like, we didn't have to be that rushed to where you had to ask the question when you were looking for it. But we, like I said, we appreciate Neff's passion. We appreciate the debaters who come here. The debaters are the lifeblood of the channel. So we really are thankful for all of you that come, especially the ones that stay the whole time.
Well, I've also been speaking to Nathan Thompson. I've asked him if he'd debate me on here because he kind of refuses to come on my channel anymore. And he says that he's up for it. So if me, you, and Nathan Thompson can communicate, I'll bring him on here. And I say debate, but with Nathan Thompson, it might be more like teaching kindergarten. I'm not sure.
I'm happy to host you guys. It would be a pleasure to have you. I've definitely seen Nathan Thompson before on, I think, a Non Sequitur show. So that would be an honor to host both of you guys. And yeah, so I hope you guys have a superb rest of your day. You got extra time now. You can, do laundry or anything else like that. I hope you have an enjoyable Sunday, folks. And again, speakers are linked in the description. And so with that, keep sifting out the reasonable from the unreasonable. Take care.